I'm dehydrated. When you've just come from 4 hours of drinking and you have to film. Cheery. Hello, welcome back to How to Hen. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the delicate issue of saying no when you are invited to a hen or a bachelorette party that you can't or just don't want to go to for whatever reason. Now, I'm sure that a lot of us have been in this position where potentially we've been invited to a hen weekend we just can't go to. Maybe you have been to one too many bachelorette parties this year and you just can't face another one. Maybe you don't feel particularly safe. Given the current environment and things that are going on in the world right now, it might be that you have been invited to an event that you are not comfortable going to because of health reasons. Or maybe there are some other more personal issues that mean that you don't really want to attend this weekend. Maybe you're getting married and you just can't afford it on top of your wedding. Whatever it is, most of us have been in the position where we don't really want to go to something, and then you have to deal with saying no and declining the invite. So I'm going to talk you through 4 sort of ways, things, strategies, whatever you want to call it, for declining that invite in a way that isn't going to burn bridges and cause too much hurt or drama. So number 1 is to be honest. Now obviously honesty is the best policy always with these things. I would always say as much as you can to try and be honest. If you genuinely cannot make it because of work commitments or whatever it is, you can just say that. That's a pretty easy out to say, I can't go, I'm really sorry because of XYZ. If it is for health purposes as well, I would always recommend being honest about that. If you feel that you do not want to attend an event right now because of coronavirus or whatever it is, maybe you have vulnerable family members, maybe you yourself are vulnerable, maybe it just gives you too much anxiety to be around people that you haven't met before right now and you don't feel that it's safe. All of these things are perfectly legitimate reasons for you to say, listen, I'm just not comfortable with this right now, I don't want to do it. If your reasons are a little bit more delicate than just prior commitments, then yeah, it can be a little bit more hard to be honest, but I would always recommend that you try as much as possible. So for example, if the issue is budget, if you can't afford to go because the weekend is too expensive, you can always say something like, listen, it's been a really tough year for me this year, and as much as I would really love to make it, I just can't quite afford it, but it sounds like it's going to be amazing. I hope you guys have an amazing time and I can't wait to hear all about it. So that way you're not accusing the person organising it of vastly going over budget. There's a big difference between saying, well, actually that's just too expensive, so I'm not going to be able to afford it, so I can't go. And I'm really sorry, it sounds like it's going to be amazing, but I just can't this year. It's just out with what I'm able to spend at the moment, but have an amazing time. It sounds really great. You see the difference? Like, one of those is quite sort of sassy and accusatory and could upset the person who's organised it or cause drama or gossip or whatever it is, which you really don't want. The other one is just saying, look, it sounds great, you've planned something amazing, but for me personally, I'm just not able to commit or invest in that right now. You're still being honest, but you're not accusing anyone of making it out of your budget. You're not getting defensive or angry. Another issue that can sometimes come up is if you have an issue with one of the other guests. So maybe you and the bridesmaid, or you and someone else who is already attending have some history, have some drama in the background from previous interactions. Maybe you've met before, maybe you went to school together, whatever it is. It's worth at this point remembering that most of your communication will be with the person organising it and not with the bride. So if the person organising it doesn't have a personal connection to whoever this other person is that you have an issue with, obviously if they're friends, this doesn't work. But if they don't really know each other, it's easier for you to say something like, as much as I'd like to think that whoever it is, X, and I could be civil and could get along for the sake of one weekend, I think honestly there's just a little bit too much history between us, and the last thing I'd want is for the bride special weekend to have any sort of drama overshadowing it. So I think it's probably best that if I just don't attend right now. But it sounds like it's going to be really good, and I hope that she has an amazing time. You're not trying to put the organizer in a difficult position where she has to like choose between people. You're not putting the bride in a difficult position. Yes, it's really crap if you and someone else having drama means that you miss out on the weekend, but if you feel strongly enough about not seeing this person, try as much as you can. Again, not if the organizer is good friends with this person, because that's going to be difficult. But if she's not overly close to her, you can say, there's too much drama, I don't want there to be drama. I feel like you can be honest enough about that, and then you're leaving it in the hands of the organizer, who she then puts that across to the bride. Basically, just try your best as much as you can to be honest. But if that's not really an option, then we can move on to number 2, which is have an excuse. Now obviously this is tale as old as time. If you have something that you don't want to do, you don't want to go to, you want to get out of, have an excuse. Now I am not promoting that you lie through your teeth. I'm not a fan of that, but every now and again a little white lie is needed if you want to spare the drama or feelings being hurt or whatever it is. You just want to avoid kind of all that conflict. However, if you are going to come up with an excuse that's not necessarily true, there are some things you need to consider. Firstly, do not involve anyone in your story that you haven't informed. Do not rope somebody in that you haven't told. So don't say, oh, I'd love to come, but actually we're having a huge family gathering that weekend in a cabin up in wherever because we haven't seen each other in so long. We just decided we'd do this little get together, so I'm really sorry we can't make it. And then the bride or the organizer bumps into your sister or your mum in the shops 2 weeks later, and they mention it and then they go, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, we're not going anywhere that weekend. Then you're in trouble. Do not let someone else put you in it because you haven't told them what you've said. Secondly, make the excuse a good one. This feels obvious, but like if it's 4 or 5 months away, don't say, oh, I have a hair appointment, or like, oh, I think I've got the dentist that weekend. Like, no one's believing that, and it just sounds so crap and non-committal. And like, oh, if you're going to come up with an excuse of a reason that you cannot go, it has to be something you can't get out of. It could be something as simple as, oh, I have to work that weekend, but make sure there's no way that that could come out, which brings us on to the next rule, which is you have to be very careful on social media if you're going to do this. So don't say, oh my god, I'm working like solidly 12-hour shifts, if that's something that you do all weekend, or I'm going up to this family gathering in this cabin that weekend, and then on the weekend you forget that you said that and you post a picture on Facebook or Instagram of you in your slippers with a glass of Chardonnay watching the latest episode of, I don't know, insert your favourite show here. Do not post that on your Instagram when you're supposed to be away on this family weekend. Then you're going to get caught out. So you have to be careful. If you're going to start lying about things and coming up with excuses, you have to cover your tracks. I don't love this. I don't love the whole idea of lying and having to cover your tracks and all the rest of it. So really what I would say the best thing to do is, if you're coming up with an excuse, is to create plans that maybe didn't exist when you got invited, but will make you actually busy that weekend. So invite a separate group of friends to a sleepover at your house, or arrange a birthday dinner with someone you went to uni with. Put plans in your calendar after you get invited so that you do actually have plans and you actually can't go. The only thing that you are sort of lying about is when you were invited and when those plans were made. So you can say, oh, actually I already have this that I'm going to. If you do that, you don't have to worry about covering your tracks on social media, looping in people to your lie that you've made up where you've roped in someone else. You are actually doing something else and you are actually busy. You've just sort of fudged the dates a little bit of when you were invited. That is the easiest way to have like an excuse to get out of going, if that needs to be the way that you do it. Again, don't recommend that. We'd always try and get people to be honest as much as possible, but sometimes it's just not the way forward to do that. So number 3, once you've sort of done the turning down, you can make plans to see the bride personally at another time. I really like this option because it really sort of softens the blow. So for you to be able to say, oh listen, I'm really sorry I'm not going to be able to make it, but I can't wait to hear all about it, so let's catch up really soon. Are you free on X date, specific date? Now this is really important. If you are good friends with the bride and you do actually want to see her and maintain this relationship, it's so important that you arrange a specific date after the hen or before the hen, it doesn't really matter, to catch up with her. Don't just say, oh, I'm really sorry I can't make it, but you know, let's catch up soon, and leave it at that, because that will sound insincere and that you don't really care, you're just brushing her off, which you don't want to do, hopefully. So arrange to see her one-on-one to hear all about her amazing hen party and talk to her and maybe give her a little gift or whatever it is that you want to do to celebrate with her one-on-one. And the last one, number 4, is offer to take part in the weekend in some sort of other way. Now this doesn't mean that you need to tune in and like Zoom call for every single activity, because that's ridiculous and you might as well be there if that's what you're going to do. But there are lots of little ways that you could contribute to the weekend or let the bride know that you were thinking of her and that you wanted to do something for her. So some things that you can do are pay for a drink for the bride, or depending on your budget, you could pay for a round of drinks for everyone there if they're going to be out somewhere. If you are playing games like what age was the bride or how do you know the bride, if you want to know the rules to these games, they are in my icebreakers video, which should be appearing above my head if you're on YouTube, in a little card right now. If you're not on YouTube, go to my YouTube channel or scroll back on my Instagram to see the icebreakers video, and they will be in there. But the what age is the bride and how do you know the bride icebreaker games, you can contribute a story or some pictures or whatever to that game, so that on the weekend it is read out or called out and she knows that you were there and that you put effort into that game. If there is going to be a scrapbook, so quite often people will write stories, notes, and put something together in a little scrapbook for the bride that then gets given to her on the last day. If you're not going to be able to go but you're close enough to the bride that you feel like you could do this, get the scrapbook in advance from the organizer and write your little bit in it, stick your pictures in it, whatever, before they go on the weekend, so that way when the bride gets her book at the end of the weekend, what you have wanted to put is already in there, so she knows that you made the effort beforehand. You could contribute some sort of food type gift, so you could send a box of cupcakes, cookies, brownies, whatever it is to the venue as a sort of way to help her celebrate and a gift for her. It is very important that you speak to whoever's organising the party in the weekend in advance, because if she's already bought a box of 30 cupcakes and you send another 20, everyone's going to be cupcaked out of their mind and they're just going to go to waste, so don't do that. Or you can always offer to buy one of the games that are played on the weekend or a certain set of decorations that's going to go in a particular place. That way the organiser knows that you've put into something and she can then pass that on to the bride, so that she knows that you've put in a little bit of something into the weekend to show that you do care, you just can't or won't be there for whatever reason. Regardless of whichever these 4 tactics, techniques, whatever you decide to use when you are saying no to the weekend, there are some top tips that I'd like you to consider. The first one being to compliment the planner or organizer. So usually, hopefully, the person who's putting this weekend together is really trying their best to make sure they meet the needs of everyone and they really put together something the bride would want, and they're keeping the bride in mind. It's a lot of work, it can be quite stressful to put this together, so if you are complimentary and you finish off your decline with things like, but it sounds like it's going to be amazing, you've worked so hard, she's really going to love it, well done. All of those things help keep the organizer on your side, which means whatever reason you give for not coming, she's more likely to accept that, take it on board and pass it on in a nice way to the bride, than if you come out guns blazing and say, oh, that's way too expensive, you've made it too expensive for me to come, like, oh, I don't want to go, it sounds rubbish. Like, if you on the organizer's efforts, basically, she's not going to take that decline very well, and therefore what she says to the bride about the way you've declined is also going to be affected. So try and keep that in mind. Unless you have a genuine reason to not like the organizer or the way that she has put the weekend together, genuinely try and compliment her and try and make her feel good about it, and not that it's her fault that you can't go. This goes on to the next top tip, which is to be genuinely apologetic. For whatever reason, this bride has felt it suitable to invite you into a special weekend in which she's going to celebrate, hopefully only the once, this thing that's happening to her in her life. She has thought of you and included you. So even if you're not particularly close to her, and even if you don't want to go for XYZ whatever reasons, try and keep that in mind when you are declining. Be sincere in your apology, mean it. On the day of the actual weekend, give her a message and say, listen, I hope you have a really great time, I'm sorry I can't make it, or really wish you all the best and hope you have an amazing weekend. It shows that you are thinking about her and that you do acknowledge that she made the effort to invite you to something, regardless of whether or not you want to go or can't go. Treat it as something that you are genuinely sad to be missing out on, even if you aren't. The last tip that I cannot really stress enough is to remember that it's not about you, it's about the bride. If whatever has been planned over the weekend makes you feel like you are being left out or not included, or it doesn't suit you, try not to be angry or defensive or irritable about these things, which is natural because we're all human and we are going to feel like that. Try and take a breath and remember who it's about. This happens a lot with budget issues, so hopefully the organizer, whoever was putting it together right at the beginning, laid out a rough plan and a rough idea for budget, what was going to be included, how much it was going to cost everyone. If that plan suits most people who are coming and is something that the bride would genuinely love and enjoy, but it means you can't really make it because you can't afford to go or for whatever reason, try and remember that it's something that she would love. Don't get angry about it. Try and remember that if it's the best thing for the bride and you really are her friend and you want her to be happy and have an amazing weekend, then take a breath, take a step back and say, do you know what? She's gonna have a great time. It means I might not be able to be there, but I know that she's gonna love it. Likewise, let's say something has been planned for the weekend that you don't necessarily approve of or want to take part in. Maybe it's cave diving, maybe it's a stripper, maybe it's an inflatable obstacle course, or maybe it's a pole dancing lesson. If something has been planned that you absolutely outright just don't approve of, don't want to go to, do not use that as your excuse not to go. Do not say, well, I'm not going to enjoy that, I don't approve of that, therefore I'm not going to the weekend, because then what you're doing is you're making her entire weekend about you. If it's something she would love and you know she would have a good time doing, just go to the weekend, and you can choose not to take part in those things. You know, you can close your eyes and shimmy your shoulders when the stripper is dancing if that helps you, but do not use that as your reason not to go. Basically, whatever you do, whether you decide to go and say no to certain activities or you decide to not go entirely, if you keep the bride at the forefront of your mind all the time when you are declining, then you can't really go far wrong. Alright, I hope that that has helped you and given you some tools and some ideas on how to sort of say no to that invite without burning bridges, causing drama, having difficult conversations. Alright, if you would like to find out any more about hen bachelorette parties, please check out my website www.howtohen.com. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Everything is at howtohen, all one word. You can find me anywhere with that username. I am on Instagram, Facebook, I have a Pinterest, I'm all over the interwebs, so it's not difficult to find me, okay? In the meantime, happy henning everyone. Love you, bye!